Okay, so now I'm going to take you through this type of questions where they can say if cos 20 degrees is equals to t, then determine the value or values of the following in terms of t. So I've just modified that statement to suit the way in which I'm going to be doing this lesson, where I'm saying if cos 20 degrees is equals to t, then we need to determine values of below in terms of t. Not that much complicated, but trust me when I say there is a way in which I had to figure out how to deal with this type of problems, and the only way I could get it right is through drawing that right-angled triangle. Okay, then it's fine. Let me just draw that right-angled triangle. Remember, we are having this statement which says if cos 20 degrees is equals to t. And what I know is that the ratio for cos is actually x over r. That's what I know. So that means in this case, because that t is not being divided by anything, I will just force it to be over 1, just so that at least I will know that the x value is represented by t and then the r value is represented by 1. So now I will need to draw that diagram. The diagram will be in the first quadrant. How do I know it's going to be in the first quadrant? It is because of that given angle, which is an acute angle. So that's how I know that my right-angled triangle is going to be in the first quadrant. It's in most cases where you will have to draw this in the first quadrant, because with this type of questions, they did not say if the angle is the element of whatever. Just like if you would be given, let's say, cos theta equals maybe 1 over 4, and they say theta is the element of maybe 0 and 180 degrees. It's different from that. So that's how you know that this is a different question, where they say cos of whatever angle, it's equals to maybe a letter, and then they say determine the following in terms of that letter. That's how you know. But in terms of drawing this, you will therefore draw it in the first quadrant, because this angle, it is 20 degrees. Remember, this is your vertical axis and this is your horizontal axis. Most importantly, your r value in this case is 1 and your x value in this case is t. So what is missing is that y value, or the vertical side. How are you going to find that? Obviously, this is where you use theorem of Pythagoras. Remember, we haven't started answering question A, B, C, D, and E. All that we are doing is just to try complete a right-angled triangle, so that whatever question that comes, if necessary, we will therefore refer to this complete right-angled triangle with all the sides known. So the formula says r squared equals x squared, that you plus it with y squared. So r is 1 being equals to x. It is represented by t, that you plus it by y squared. Remember, it is y that we are looking for. So 1 squared is definitely 1. We will take this t to the other side, then that's why it changes the sign, it becomes a minus. The last step that we need to do is just to square root both sides, so that we remove that squared. So it ends up being square root of 1 minus t squared, which is equals to y. So doesn't matter whether you rewrite it and say y, it is therefore equals to 1 minus t squared. Still the same thing. Just be careful and not be confused where you try to now remove that and say the square root of 1 minus t because the square removed that. It doesn't apply in this case because that square root, it's square root the whole of that. So you can see inside the brackets is 2 terms. That's why you can't say this thing is the same as square root of 1 minus square root of t squared. It would be a complete different thing. So now we know all the sides. So that means here we are having 1 minus t squared. So you might need to be aware that sometimes it can be given to you as sine 20 being equals to t, or maybe tan 20 equals to t. You just need to know the ratio for the trig ratio that you will be given, and then you just complete your right angled triangle. So now we are going to start answering the questions. So these are the questions where they said if cos 20 degrees is equals to t, determine the value or values of the following in terms of t. So the first question that we are given, so that means after that statement you will therefore be given A, B, C, D, and E. That's what we are going to be looking at. But before you start answering those A to E, rather complete your right. Okay, it looks like my battery is running a bit low, but it's fine. I think I will be able to manage. So let's see. The first question, you are given cos of 160 degrees. Where is the starting point? Remember, you are given this big angle that you will need to reduce. How do we reduce it? Already I've taught you how to reduce the big angles. This one you can just easily say 180 degrees minus 20 degrees, which means this is equals to let's see, obviously 180 falls in the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, let's see, it's easy for me when I do this and then I just say cast. So let's see, in the second quadrant cos is negative. That is why this will therefore be negative cos of 20 degrees. So that means I've just reduced it. So now that it has been reduced, let us finalize. So according to that right angled triangle, my cos 20 degrees will therefore be negative. What is let's see, what is the ratio for cos of that 20 degrees? It will definitely be the ratio would be x over r. So what is x? You still have your negative. X is t, and then what is your r is 1. So that means actually the final answer would be negative t there. That negative, I'm sure you remember where it comes from, in that quadrant where cos is negative. So another honorable member may say, since we were told that cos 20 degrees is equals to t, that means straight away from that statement I can just say negative. They said cos of 20 degrees is equals to t. So that means I will just say negative t. So it is a shortcut, but this shortcut can be dangerous if a question comes differently. But otherwise, if you do it this long way, you are safe, and you will be practicing for that one where they say where this is between that and that, or where the angle is the element of this and that. So you'll be, what is it, beating how many birds? 2 of them. Yes, it should be 2 of them. With how many stones? It has to be 1. Yes. Okay, but it's fine. Whichever way you do it, do not worry that much, as long as you get the correct answer. And also, it will depend on how they teach you in class, but rather learn both methods. The one that I always follow is the most reliable one, because it doesn't matter how the question comes. Whichever way it comes, I will always more it decisively. So the second question, you are given cos of negative 200 degrees. So we have to reduce that angle, but before we reduce it, we will need to remember that this is now a negative angle. What did we say about negative angles? We said let's always assume them to be falling in the fourth quadrant. In the fourth quadrant, let's see, yes, it is that cos which is positive. Therefore, this thing is the same as cos of 200 degrees. Then now, let's see, in which quadrant does 200 fall? Quadrant 3. Yes, so let's reduce it. So you can see it's just a game of reducing these bigger angles. Once they are reduced, then that's when you can deal with them nicely and decisively. So now, what else are we having? Then in the third quadrant, cos is negative. That is why we will end up having negative cos of 20 degrees. So without taking it long, already we know that it will be negative. What is cos 20? X over r. What is the x value? Is t. What is the r value? It's 1. And then t over 1, it will end up being just t. I'm sure you still remember where this negative is coming from. So you are most likely to make a mistake by not being careful when it comes to the sign. You might find that you get your final answer as positive t. Just know that it is wrong. It has to be negative t. So now let's jump on to another problem where now you are given sine of 250 degrees. So in this case, honorable member, still simple and straightforward. We need to reduce that. We definitely need to reduce that. So how are we going to reduce it? Let's see. Okay, so we can just say sine of, in which quadrant? Second quadrant. Maybe let's say what is it? 180 degrees, that we plus it by what? I think it's going to be 70. Yes, that we plus it by 70 degrees. Okay, then it's fine. We are going to say in which quadrant does this fall? So the quadrant in which this falls is quadrant 3, where sine is negative in that quadrant. Then it means we have negative sine of 70 degrees. But the problem now is that we are having our angle there as 70 degrees, and we don't want it as 70, but we want it as 20 degrees. How are we going to change it from 70 to 20? You remember there is this reduction formula that we can use, which says 90 degrees minus, if we minus it by 20, that's when it gives us that 70. So we haven't changed anything. All that we did, it was just to rewrite it in its different form, where we use the 90 to manipulate it. So with this type of questions, you will be required to be careful when it comes to this type of questions, where you might need to use, let's say, 90, what is it, 90 minus, maybe you might find that if you said 270 t minus 20, it would still be the same as that, what is it, that angle of 250. So it just depends on which reduction formula you use. So remember, how did we say we deal with it? In which quadrant? First quadrant. In the first quadrant, is this positive or negative? It is positive, okay? But because it is the 1 for 90, it must change. So that means it becomes negative, which is that same negative there, but the sign changes to cos. So that means it becomes cos of 20 degrees. So can you see, we've just manipulated it, and now we are back to that cos 20, which is the same as negative t. I'm sure by now you will fully understand why it is negative t. I've done a long or lengthy calculation on the first problem, so now I will just write it as that. Same principle, same explanation, no need to refer many times to that diagram. So now maybe let us jump onto this one, being problem D, where they say now they are giving it to you straight as sine of 20 degrees. Okay, when it is given to you like this as sine 20 degrees, you will therefore just need to, you don't need to reduce that angle because already is reduced. So that means you just need to write the ratio for sine, where sine we know that it is y over r. So that means the main aim is to make sure that the angle is reduced, so that you will write it in its ratio form, and then you substitute based on the diagram. So on the diagram, we calculated that y side, which is square root of 1 minus t squared, r is 1. So that means here we are having that square root of 1 minus t squared divided by 1, which is supposed to be equals to just square root of 1 minus t squared. And that is the end of it. I'm pretty much sure that you did understand how easy that one is, especially after you have done your right angled triangle. And let's do this last one, where you are given tan of 20 degrees. Again, the angle is reduced, so all that you need to do, it is to write the ratio for tan, which is that y over x, and with our reference angle being 20, we will therefore remember that y, I hope you still remember that it is that square root of 1 minus t squared over our x value, and that one we have figured it out to say it is actually t, and that is the end of it. So with you doing that, you've answered all the questions related to that. So just be aware, honorable member, just be aware that it can be given to you. Let's say maybe they can just say if cos 35 degrees is equals to k, right? And they say the following in terms of k, something like that. Or sometimes they can give it to you in terms of what? Let's say they say if tan 22 degrees is equals to t, write the following in terms of t. So you just make sure that you watch this lesson over and over and over and over again until you get the correct answers, because it follows the same principle. And once you have managed to complete it, then you are completely done with this lesson or this type of questions. Okay, I think I've covered all that I wanted to cover, so I might as well just sign out and say until we meet